So you wake up and find a strange, gigantic tail off the coast. No big deal. Probably like a whale or something weird. And then it comes on land. Well, certainly it can't stand up. Okay, well it stood up, but at least it left. Might as well prepare some defenses just in case it comes back. Okay, it came back and it's a lot bigger than expected. This Shin Godzilla thing is kind of scary.
Love it or hate it, 2016's Shin Godzilla is one of the most unique Godzilla movies in the franchise to date, and the movie leverages its oddities to make it scary in a way that its only competition is the original 1954 movie.
This is not going to be a hour-long video essay about Shin Godzilla. We're just a couple of Higuchi fans, and we've wanted to make a video like this, sharing our thoughts for some time now, ever since we created the channel.
In this video, we're going to discuss why Shin Godzilla is so terrifying, as well as what makes this movie a little strange. But before we begin, I am Mio.
And I am Kido.
Now let's begin.
Right off the bat, scenes of this tail emerging from the bay is pretty off-putting and strange in a very surreal way. Clearly we're about to watch a Godzilla movie, but this is happening a little suddenly. The movie doesn't waste any time getting started.
A strange salamander-like creature emerges, and it isn't what you would expect, and you're not sure whether to laugh or run away. This creature, against all odds, also manages to stand up on its back legs and creates a huge amount of damage in a short time. These scenes mark its transition from its second form to its third form.
Technically, the giant creature at this point is not called Godzilla yet. The first form in the bay doesn't actually have a nickname, but the second form is nicknamed Kamata-kun, and the third form is named Shiragawa-kun, and his fourth form is named Kamakura-san.
After Shinagawa-kun runs back into the ocean, it leaves you really off balance and makes you wonder what could possibly happen next.
If you've seen the marketing, you'd know this isn't the end, of course, then you already know what Godzilla's supposed to look like. And his final design is really.
Now an even more terrifying creature re-emerges, and it doesn't bear much resemblance to its original form.
Mahiro Maeda, not sure if I'm saying that correctly, a designer heavily involved in designing the creatures of the Heisei Gamera trilogy in the 1990s, worked on the Godzilla design for this film.
Even before we got a look at the design, we were quite excited to see what he would come up with, since the Gamera trilogy turned out so well, and we wanted to see what kaiju he would design next.
The design is extremely grotesque, and appears like its skin is burning and cracking. Looks very painful. A very interesting video by Rowan, I can't say that name, Gaming, breaks down the evolution of Shin Godzilla really well. So if you're interested in the science of Godzilla, I suggest you watch that video sometime.
It looks very unnatural and out of place, lending to the idea that it's some kind of abomination. The mouth is filled with crooked teeth, and its eyes have this haunting stare, kind of like it's not even looking at you, really.
Just got those eyes, you know.
It moves in such a way which I can only describe as a graceful zombie.
Its slow movements add to realism, in my personal opinion, almost acting as the embodiment of inevitable destruction.
Also, it's huge! The previous form really shows just how big this version is. The last one wasn't small, but by comparison, this one just towers over it.
Its large size allows it to lumber forward despite any obstacles, and it's not fazed at all by normal firepower. While just walking, Godzilla accidentally kicks a bridge, launching it into the air and almost destroying the entire detachment of tanks. Is that what you call a group of tanks? I don't know. Needless to say, this Godzilla is no joke. And while this might just feel like mindless monster action, monster versus tanks kind of thing, something about Shin Godzilla just feels really real.
When Godzilla emerges, he's just there. On a beach. It's so understated that it somehow makes it feel more genuine. In truth, if a random creature were to emerge from the ocean, there really wouldn't be much warning or fanfare.
There's a lot of CGI in this movie, and for the most part, it looks really good, especially in the early parts of the film. Camera angles and cinematography help elevate the realism of the movie, like you could just go outside and see this huge tail just swinging over your house. In my opinion, it conveys the scale of the monster the best of the franchise, with a couple of exceptions.
As for the flow of the movie, it feels like it's telling a true story because of the lack of theatrics. Although many, including myself, would say that there are far too many meetings and a lot of talking in the movie, it helps make things feel more like an actual series of unfortunate events. One of which would be
not to sound like a gushing fanboy, but this scene is one of the most beautiful and awe-inspiring moments in all of Godzilla movie history. Actually, I don't care if I sound like a fanboy. The scene doesn't have a massive build-up, but it just happens. You gotta detail Godzilla's jaw slowly splitting open before he literally vomits nuclear fire on the ground as chef's kiss.
This is also the most unique atomic breath, not just because of its purple color, but also because of how it goes from a huge fire blast to a thinner slicer beam. The music going on at the same time is still enough to give me chills.
Godzilla then develops the ability to shoot lasers from its back, which is cool and very original, although I don't know if it's necessary. Still cool though. And then it ends with Godzilla being framed by a burning city, before he finally returns to sleep.
Naturally, having never seen a giant monster before, the characters in the film are caught off guard and shocked. The same can be said for classic Godzilla fans, as we've never seen anything like this in a movie before, making us question just how far this Godzilla will go. And that's where the real terror of Shin Godzilla begins.
There are several deleted scenes from this movie, one of which is the Shirogane-kun vomiting blood onto the streets. I can understand why they deleted this one, because the movie's already rated R in Australia.
You're fake news.
But in another scene, one of the pieces of Godzilla that got blasted off during one of the attacks early in the movie is examined, and they find that it's starting to grow eyes and teeth. This implies that's almost dropping seeds or something, which is insanely creepy.
In the art of Shin Godzilla, the concept art shows his potential is limitless and could grow to do anything and become truly unstoppable. This is of course scary, and we know theoretically, if left unchecked, Godzilla could grow to infinite sizes and hold infinite power, and eventually take over the entire universe, becoming a near deity. I know this sounds extremely abstract and weird, and I agree with you there. I would not want to see a movie about that, and that's all to say that this potential is limitless.
Now, I doubt they're going to go with the whole, oh, Godzilla's becoming a god and taking over the entire universe type of thing for the movie. But based on the final shot of the movie, things could turn ugly very quickly.
The close-up of the tail is but a mere glimpse at Shin Godzilla's fifth form. Even though Shin Godzilla is scary in its own right as a movie, it communicates sentiments about real-world tragic events.
The movie revolves around similar fears surrounding the nuclear bombings of Japan during World War II, similarly to the original 1954 movie. But it also adds the current fear and attitudes about the Fukushima disaster and Tohoku, I don't know if I'm saying that right, earthquake and tsunami.
In this disaster, a huge earthquake created a tsunami that not only killed thousands but also caused the Fukushima Daiichi, I think I'm saying that right, in the northern Japan to experience a nuclear meltdown that would kill hundreds more and cause mass evacuation. Even after the disaster, the effects of the nuclear contamination in the fish from the surrounding area affected the people's food source, and much of the land will be uninhabitable for decades, according to the Japanese government. That's reminiscent of the ending of the movie, as Godzilla, now dormant, continues to loom, and the Japanese people will just have to live with him.
Many of the Japanese people saw the way the Japanese government handled the situation as ill-prepared and poorly executed. These ideas are also expressed clearly in Shin Godzilla, showing the kind of red tape and bureaucracy the government officials need to go through to get anything done, even in an emergency. They almost would have lost, and Godzilla would have taken over the world had they abided by the usual government channels. And the last shot of the creatures coming off the tail shows they were just in time.
By tying into such themes, this movie really gets back to the core of what Gojira was all about. It originally embodied the fear that Japan was feeling at the time, and the threat of nuclear disaster and complete annihilation. This new movie now adapts to the modern audience to convey both new and familiar horror.
This movie is really unique and we really enjoy it, but we would be remiss if we didn't mention some of the aspects of the movie that are a little bit funky.
Firstly, this movie is highly political and not particularly grounded in the average Japanese person's life.
The movie is arguably the greatest departure for the character of Godzilla in the series, except for Godzilla 1998, which we do not speak of.
This is disgusting. This is awful in every way.
The idea of Godzilla evolving through 3 on-screen forms of the film is unique and perhaps a little bit off-putting for some viewers, who may argue this monster is not truly Godzilla, but a new creature entirely that is very, very different.
Certain details about the design might also throw off some people. Godzilla looks extra mutated compared to some previous iterations, and some of the design choices look a little bit goofy, like the goldfish eyes and the tiny arms, although I personally like the tiny arms.
Some of his abilities are also kind of weird. Not sure where they thought of the idea of him shooting beams out of his back and tail. It's unique, if nothing else.
And while the acting is very good in this movie, there are some language barrier issues that cause some problems. The American politician lady can hardly speak English, and she sounds more like a native Japanese speaker who learned English as a second language.
Just US Japan, so win-win.
This wouldn't be so bad if the character wasn't supposed to be an all-American girl, and the idea of her wanting to be president when she can hardly be understood at times is kind of hard to swallow.
And while some of the American actors sound like they're dubbed or something, they just sound a little off.
It appears that Godzilla has something like a built-in phased array radar.
You and I must bear the risk of retaliation. Me, I'm okay.
The Japanese politicians speak better English, which is actually surprisingly good.
The movie also leans really hard into the science of Godzilla. This is nothing really new for the series, but usually the franchise leans more into the higher sci-fi, rather than long explanations of how and why Godzilla can do what he can do. It's also delivered at such a rapid-fire pace, it can make reading the subtitles really hard for a weak English speaker such as I.
In the end, though, they ultimately solved the problem of how to defeat Godzilla with some kind of origami puzzle, or something. I still, to this day, don't understand any of that, and I feel that could have been explained a little bit better.
And finally, because of these long scenes of dialogue, and mostly science and political talk, the movie's pacing is noticeably off. It is extremely slow in some areas and hits major lulls. Then a few months later, all of a sudden a bunch of high-paced action happens.
However, despite these strange anomalies in the movie, I still think it was extremely effective at communicating what it intended to do, and along with Godzilla 2014, solidified the Godzilla franchise as one to be taken seriously once more.
Not only that, but it brought Godzilla back to its true horror roots. And it seems they'll be continuing this direction with Godzilla -1, which I am super excited to see.
We will definitely be reviewing that when it comes to America, so please subscribe if you're interested in that.
Also, update. My ankle's feeling better. I'm not sure if any of you heard, but I recently slipped on something and basically sprained my ankle. And it was pretty bad for a while, but it's getting better and recording is becoming easier. So thank you for all the thoughts and prayers, and thank you for watching this video. It means a lot. Even if this video doesn't really pop off, this is a video we've been wanting to make for a while, so finally glad to have it out there.
Also, we are now officially in Miyokido's spooky season, which will carry on somewhat into November, because we got a lot of ideas, and we don't celebrate Halloween, so we're not constricted by that.
So get ready for some pretty interesting videos, including Five Nights at Freddy's. But that's the end of this video, and if you're interested in watching another one, check out this one over here. But until then, he's Mio.
And he's Keto.
And we hope you have a blessed day.
Bye!